G'day, guys. Welcome back to the NBA Supercoach Swordplay podcast. Just the two of us this week, but as always, I'm joined by an absolute legend in Boz. Boz, how are things, my friend? Did you have a decent week, life-wise, Supercoach? I believe you're now on holidays for a little while, which is a nice feeling.
Yes, DR. Life-wise, it's good. So, yeah, wrapped up work last Friday. I guess the first official day of the school holidays for you and I, my friend, and
Yes.
been painting the house. So, still busy, but I guess it's good to be busy at home rather than be busy at work. But in the Supercoach landscape, horrific. Had a really poor week. I knew going into this week it was not going to be great. Didn't have a lot of three-game players, and then just decided to not captain Jalen Johnson for whatever reason. Went Şengün. That cost me about 60 points. Lost in my cup matchup, and I'm down the rankings now. So I'm down to 255th overall, but hoping for a big bounce back this week.
Yeah, some would say it's a tough life all the way back there at 255 overall. But look, it goes to show you got high standards and you have had a ripping season to date. And I remember you talking about it. You were prepared for this, for a bit of a lull, for a bit of a down week, but you've got boosts in the bank, plans going forward. So I reckon you'll get right back up there, mate. Bit of a mulligan, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. You can see on the screen here, this is the NBA Podmasters group, so all the content creators. Horse at the moment, Mickey's absolutely smashing it out of the park, 8,241. And you had second place sewn up, I reckon, since week one, since week two, basically, Boz. But we can see Mr. Whiskers down there at third, 7,986. The great Dr. Kando, Kane has you by a total of 4 points, mate. So going very well there. And then it gets pretty close. I'm there at 6 DRs, Rusty Bulls, 7888. We've got the great NBA Australia, James, who was also on the official podcast, I think the Supercoach podcast for the NBL last year. Liam there and some absolute legends. We'll see Vernsey. Now, Verns Ball is there at 17, 7413. But believe me, as you know, Boz, the great man will come through and he'll come home strong. But look, not a great week for you in the weekly. I'm sitting at about 513 or right on 513 overall. But again, I say it every week. That's because of your great knowledge and all the hard work that you and Verns do, my friends. So before we get into it and take a look at some of the injuries, short-term, long-term, schedule, some of the targets, and then finish off with captains and trade plans, we do have some comments here from some very, very loyal listeners. We've got the ladies' man, Causa Blackleach. How are you, Causa? Causa is considering Thompson, Kalkbrenner, Seacombe, and Barnes to SGA, Mitchell Murray, and Gonzalez with 1.6 million in the bank. Do you want to answer this one now, Boz, or are these some names that we're going to go through when we get into the slides?
There are definitely some names we'll touch on, but I think SGA is the biggest lock this week. He's someone that if you can get him, you must get him. OKC going to a big 4-game stretch. They've got a couple of key players out, so I expect SGA to be playing in as many of those games as he can and dominating as per usual. I'm having a look there. Yeah, Murray's going to be a very popular one we'll touch on just because I think Denver have something like, could be the next 6 weeks running 4 games. So pretty much maximizing the amount of games there with Murray. So he'll be a very popular pick this week. And I like his little downgrade in Gonzalez from Boston, who's starting to get some consistent minutes. I assume, Corey, or hopefully you already have our number one kind of cash grab favorite, Raynaud from Sacramento. If you haven't got him, I know he's a little bit more expensive, but I would really recommend getting him.
Yeah, very nice. And you can see from the thumbnail, very, very keen on him this week. And Roddy's back. The boys are back. Oh, and I'm sure this will be a big question. Is Banchero the best small forward, power forward trade-in option this week? Got a bit of competition with Murray. We might talk about that when we get to some of our targets, I think, Roddy. But thanks for joining us, mate, and cannot wait for the AFL. And we will talk about this, man. But the great Tatum's Tantrum, another member of the channel. How are you, legend? First in for me this week is Banchero. How long will Flag stay on our side? Seems to be getting better and more comfortable at the level. So we'll talk about Flag as well, my friend. But thanks for all the comments, guys. Really appreciate you tuning in. But let's get right into this. We'll start off, as we always do, with some of the short-term injuries. Now, Luke is a big one here. a really big one here. We've also got Flag, Chet, Hero, Morant, Hartenstein, and not even going to pronounce the last one there because I'll butcher it, Boz. But talk to us, mate. How concerned are we getting about some of these short-term injuries?
Yeah, so a few here have just popped up as of recent. So Luca kind of left yesterday's game with a lower leg contusion, so a bruise in other terms, and he had a 60-point Supercoach game in his first game, and I traded him out thinking, oh my god, on a 2-game week he's going to score more than all the blokes I've traded in put together. So I was kind of fortunate for the fact that he did miss this game. Look, if you still got him, you're probably going to want to move him on. And SJ is probably the best one. But again, I don't know if you do have him. It was a very, very kind of ballsy hold from you last week. So, yeah, Luca will be a game time decision in his next one. Cooper Flag, funnily enough, that question that was just raised in the chat there by Tatum guy. Flag's actually on the injury report for probably the second time this season. He's got a back issue. It's questionable. So he may get up and play all 4 games this week for Dallas, or he may miss. So please keep an eye on the injury report before you make your last-minute moves tomorrow. I would keep Flag in because you're right. He has actually turned it on the last 2 weeks. He's been so awesome, showing why he was the number 1 pick. But, if he misses 2 games this week, it really kind of begs, the question, should you be holding a guy who's only playing 2 games? So, yeah, look, if, you would guarantee this week he plays 4, you're keeping him. But if we see tomorrow that he's an early out on the injury report, it's not a bad option to kind of downgrade or get out of your side to get some more money in the bank in your team. Chet also another addition to the injury report. He has back spasms, I believe, so may not play. I know there are a couple of people thinking of getting Chet in because OKC's run turns good. Just be careful. I wouldn't be surprised if he does miss. They do like to rest him in their kind of 4 game weeks. They like to give him at least one of those off usually. Tyler Hero is a really frustrating one. Continues to miss with that toe injury. Every time it looks like Vern's his boy. Every time it seems he's going to get up, he's always a late scrap. So I don't know if there's anything more at play there, but it looks like he's got this toe issue that's obviously bugging him. Ja Morant's actually out tomorrow. So I know Memphis gone to a 4-game week. If you were thinking of picking Ja, I would steer against that because he's not playing in the first one. Isaiah Hartenstein, another center at OKC, he is also out tomorrow. So, if Hartenstein and Chet miss, there's some big minutes and some big production that SGA will need to do. And that's why I think he's a massive, massive in this week for most people. And then last one, DR, Markkanen. So Lauri Markkanen.
Got it.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it. He has played pretty well this year. He's missed some games. He's been pretty inconsistent. However, he's actually got a questionable tag tomorrow because he has a groin issue. Now, I think he missed their previous game, so it could have just been the 1 game off for him, but it looks like he potentially might miss their first game of the round, and that's important because Utah are also on a 4-game week. So if you're thinking about a quick kind of sugar hit with Markkanen, maybe think again.
Very good advice. And this is where it can get a little bit frustrating with your planning, isn't it? Like Cat Edwards last week, you just don't expect for this. And look, you probably should expect that things like this will happen. We know things like this will happen. But when it comes to your planning, you're really banking on some of these 3-4 game weeks. It does make it tough. So this is where all of your injury info comes in beautifully for us, Boz. But yeah, Luca's the real relevant one there, I think, mate. Now, sorry, did I skipped the long term? Sorry. So we'll quickly go back to long term. So we've got some bonus there, need an extra 4 to 6. So we knew that there was already a little bit of trouble here. What can you tell us about this, mate?
Yeah, they just came out, I think it was on maybe Wednesday or Thursday of this week just gone, and they just said he's out for another 4 to 6. So whether he re-aggravated something or whether it wasn't healing properly the way they wanted his knee to heal, I'm not sure. But yeah, an extra 4 to 6, which is why Maxime Reynaud is our number 1 trading option this week. I know he's a little bit more expensive, but for those that jumped on him last week, he was featured on the podcast last week. We spoke about him. We weren't as high as we were with Nemhard and some other guys, but I saw a couple of people just purely because he played a 3-game week get him in. He actually scored 75 this week because pretty much he has no Sabonis to contend with. And I'll be honest, if this Sabonis news came out a day earlier, he probably would have been my trade in as well. So hindsight, unfortunate, but at least I'm going to get him in this week, and he's going to have at least 4 to 6 weeks to just absolutely dominate. Obviously not, putting up 100 plus scores, but, he's going to make a lot of good cash for us. And then Zubac, the only extra kind of long-term injury that's new. Yesterday, did his ankle, came out today. It is a grade 2 sprain, so a pretty severe one. He'll be out for 3 weeks. Clippers aren't quite relevant, unfortunately, so there's not really anyone we want to kind of target in the next couple of weeks. So they do play 2-3 game weeks back-to-back. So, not really relevant for Supercoach, but just thought I'd let everyone know.
Beautiful, mate. We obviously will get to adding the targets, but yeah, Tatum's all over him. And Korza as well picked him up last week. So very, very nice. And just quickly back to Mark, then Tatum said, super frustrating. At times look like he's ready to take off. Then bam, injury hits him. It's been a common theme for him. That's really unfortunate. And for those of us that play AFL Supercoach, your Elliot Yeo type picks come to mind straight away. Your Nate Fifes. Super frustrating when you just can't rely on their durability. So good info there, Boz. Now, let's get to the schedule. Schedule is absolute king in this game, as you know, and we've tried to condense this into the one slide. So we obviously start from round 9, and then we can see some teams that have a really nice long-term schedule, those with a pretty nice short-term schedule, and those down the bottom that we absolutely avoid. And look, let's be honest, the thing that stands out like dog's balls here, mate, is the Denver run here. 4-4-4. 4-4-4, a month and a half, if you look at it in weeks of 4 game weeks. So I'm pretty sure that close to 100% of the top 5% of teams would have the big joker in. I think that's a given, but we'll talk about some other potential trade-in targets like your Murray, who we had a question about before, but Denver's a big standout here, mate. What else do you see here? Is it next up your Portland, New Orleans, or do you go down to the OKC, Orlando types? Who's really standing out for you in the short and in the long term?
Yeah, well, I think, if Denver's 4-4-4-4-4, they still have a few key players out, and that's why I think a lot of people are going to be bringing in Murray. Like, they have Christian Braun missing, they have Aaron Gordon missing, so it really is the Jokic and Murray show. Murray has, at times just gone off, and he can do this in any given week. He can really go off and not mirror anything that Jokic can do, but put up some really, really good point guard position scoring. Now, his price from memory is only around the 15 million, so very, very affordable. He's not like you're paying up for an SGA at 22 million, and I believe that he can kind of put up somewhat similar or production in Supercoach wise. Like, if you look at his stats, let's just say over the last 2 weeks where these Denver guys have gone down, he's averaging 24 points a game, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, just over a steal, shooting at 43%. So he's really not maximizing. He's usually actually, about a 48, 49% free field goal shooter. So over the last 2 weeks, he's been really down, but everything else has stayed the same. So for me, if he can just get his field goal up a little bit, he's going to be really, really valuable for people over this next 6 weeks. And it makes total sense for anyone looking super, super long-term to get Jamal Murray in that point guard, shooting guard position that he's eligible for in Supercoach. When it comes to the Pelicans, to be honest, not many guys we want. I mean, Derek Queen was the one when he was a rookie. You're happy to keep Queen through a couple of these. Obviously, if he bottoms out with his break-even, you get rid of him. But for now, he's a pretty comfortable person you can play on your court if you don't have a full primo side, which I don't think many people would be close to doing. Portland, Denny Avia, one of my favorite players.
Your boy. Yeah.
I've had him most of the year, so I'm happy to keep him. If you don't have him, at those that are listening, he's another good option you can bring in. Again, he's not too expensive. Denny, I think he's similar to Jamal Murray, around that 15 million. He's at 16.3 million. So again, affordable. And then OKC and Orlando, like 3-4 game weeks in a row. That's a great long-term schedule there. So SGA, Jalen Williams, and don't get it confused with Jalen Williams. We're talking about J-Dub, so Jalen Williams for OKC. He is pretty much their second best player. He's had a slowish start to the year. He's played some good games, had some inconsistent games. He's coming back from a thumb injury, so I don't know, maybe his shooting's a little bit off. But he can really explode. And if Chet Holmgren and Hartenstein are out for, let's say, a couple of games this week, we know that he's just going to step up just because he'll have to and do more. So he could be another sneaky pick. The only thing with him is a really high break even. So because he played so well last year, he started so high. And because he's just come back from injury, he's losing a lot of money. So, in an ideal world, we wait an extra week and he goes down some more and we get him. But again, if you want to kind of have a pod kind of pick, he'd be a good one there. Orlando, yeah, Banchero. Not the greatest fan of him. I think both percentages are really poor for a power forward. Like his field goal's really low and his free throw's terrible. And that's just going to obviously burn points. But again, with Franz Wagner being out, he needs to do a lot, if not everything for Orlando. So it doesn't shock me that, he's someone that can put up these big ceiling games when he gets the chance. Because look, over the last 2 weeks, he's got 23 points, 10 rebounds, 6.5 assists. So you look at that and you think, wow, that's really good. However, half a steal, under a block, shooting at only 40% for a power forward and only 72% from the free throw line at 10 free throws a game. So that's pretty much saying that if you're shooting 10 free throws, you're only making 7. So you're losing 3 points there. And then you're pretty much losing at least 12 points on your field goal, as well as 3 turnovers. So for him, he needs to put up massive points, rebounds, assists to kind of counterbalance the amount of points he'll lose from his field goal and his free throw. So they're the teams you want to target, and there's some players. I know I've kind of already gone into them. But look, I wouldn't blame you, though, if you want to get a Cleveland, Indiana, even a Dallas, Detroit, Memphis, Utah player just for the week or just for a couple of weeks. If you want to pivot somewhere else, like if you look at San Antonio, Wemby comes into relevance after round 9 because he's got the 2 4s. You could even just take a stab on a 1 week 4 player from, let's say, Memphis, a Jaren Jackson Jr., who's really underpriced now because he's lost a lot of money because he was terrible at the start of the year. He's just put up 2 really good games back to back. He's only at 11 million. He's trending towards mid-price target category. So someone like him, you could get in just as a placeholder for a week, downgrade him next week, and then you've got that money to hopefully get a Wemby in, as opposed to kind of getting in so many guys on these great runs that you kind of feel guilty trading them out to get someone else in because they do have 4 in a row. So, yeah, it's an interesting time in the schedule. But what I will say is, do not trade in anyone this week from these teams here. Toronto, Philly, Lakers, Clippers, Houston, Boston. There are so many teams on 4s over the next, let's say, 3 weeks consistently. You do not need to get any of these guys in the short term. Yes, once they do hit their 4 runs, great, get them in. But if you got a Scotty Barnes, that's fine. You can hold him if you don't want to get rid of him. If you have a Şengün like you would have got him this week, that's fine. You can hold him. But you're not trading anyone in from these teams down the bottom of the list. Just doesn't make any sense.
Very nice. Yeah, when you look at that 3-3, even compared to the Cleveland and Indiana that have the 4-4, that's 2 extra games on top of your total score for those 2 weeks. So it is massive. And then you look back to Denver, 4s all over the shop, mate. So very, very nice there. And we have a shout out here. The ladies' man, Causa Blackledge, is on today. You're famous in our community there, Causa. But very, very nice with the scheduling, Boz. And yeah, look, for me, after that chat, I think I've already changed 1 player into my trade plans and 1 player out. We'll talk about those when we get to the targets, which is right now. Now, you did touch on a few of these names here, but I might even throw a couple of questions out at you. Now, SGA, in my humble opinion, I'm not the expert here. As soon as it opened, he's the first man that I brought into my side because the fact that he's got 3 4s in a row, captain material, along with someone like a Joker who's also got a terrific run, a much better run. But surely, are we calling this guy an absolute must-have? We're assuming you've got Jokic in your side. This guy has to come in, doesn't he? There's no questions asked.
Yeah, in my opinion, he does. We have seen all season how consistent he's been. He's only missed the 1 game for the year. Potentially, it was a rest day. It was an elbow injury, but he returned the following, I think, day after the one that he missed and played. So for me, it might have been a bit of a rest day for him. He's carried this side all year because they've had so many injuries. But yet again, they've hit this roadblock where they have more injuries. So he pretty much has to continue playing. And if we kind of look at SGA, he's just someone that I don't think he's lost money. Or he might have lost a little bit of money this year, but he's always staying around that 22 million. I don't think you're going to get him much cheaper throughout the year. And I also don't think you're going to get him much more expensive. He's just that consistent player that just puts up great numbers across the board. looking at their schedule, OKC, they've got a couple of back-to-backs, but they've got rest either side of them. Got a couple of days off over Christmas. And then for those weeks moving forward, they're only having one back-to-back after, let's say they got this week, they got a back-to-back, then they've got a back-to-back the following week. But then after that, they've pretty much just got single games with rest in between where I don't really see him missing any, obviously barring injury, but any rest days or anything like that. So I do think SGA plays. I think they need him to. I know they're so far in front of the standings, but you can't get complacent this early in the season still. That's not until the All-Star break where teams start to rest really heavily. So SGA is must own this week.
Like it. And I think the other thing to mention is we talk about a couple of back-to-backs, but even if he does miss one, so he plays 7 out of the 8, he's still outscoring the majority of players in the comp, I think, just in those 7 games. So I'd be prepared to take the risk anyway, mate. So that's another reason why I've got him as an absolute must-have. Now, I did mention that my trade plans had slightly shifted after a conversation we had about 5 minutes ago. And I currently had Banchero in my trade plan. So he was coming in, but Murray is the other bloke. Now, after speaking with you, I'm now leaning towards Murray. Slightly different price points, pretty similar though. If I put you to the absolute sword and said, you have to answer this question for me without taking full responsibility, Murray or Banchero this week, who are you going, mate? Now, I've been writing notes. Murray, obviously opportunity with injuries and meat on the bone. That percentage has been a little bit lower, that shooting percentage. So hopefully that can come back to the norm. There's some extra points on offer there with Banchero. We know that he's got that ceiling, wagging out some opportunity, but we seem maybe a little less confident on him. But where would you be going, mate, if you could only get one into your side this week?
I think Murray's floor is much higher. And that's the reason why Banchero worries me. Like, if we look at his last 5 Supercoach games, he got 26 yesterday, 36 the game before that, which is great. But then the 3 games prior, 10, 11, 10. Yes, one of those wasn't. I think the last 10 was an injury game where he got injured. But the 11 and the 10, it scares me. Now, moving forward throughout the rest of the season before this injury, his lowest was only 20. So he's actually had a decent floor, I would say, up until then. But seeing a 10, 11, and a 10, I don't know, it just freaks me out a little bit. It just, and I don't want to be one to take too many chances. Like I took a chance on, for example, on Onyeka Okongwu this week, and he had one of those weeks where he couldn't hit a shot, and it really ruined, my week was already ruined, but it did ruin a lot scoring-wise. The only thing with Banchero is, I guess, he's got a lower break-even. So if we're worrying about money, Jamal Murray's got a 120 break-even this week. Banchero only 88. So if we want to make some money here, if I'm looking at Murray, he's only had 1 game. He hasn't had a game under 10, whereas Banchero has had a game at 10. 11's his worst score. But look, on a really bad day for Murray, he's still pretty much scoring 20. He's got a couple of 18s and 19 in there. And then on his good days, he can put out 33, 34, 56, 40, 26. There's some of the scores in his last 3 rounds, by the way. So I just think Murray's just a touch safer in terms of potentially scoring. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Banchero, does put up a big week this week, because Orlando need to win games, and he's the man who's going to win on those games. So, look, for me, it's Murray. But again, could be a positional thing. You might not have space for Murray. You might have all these point guards, shooting guards like a Cade, Donovan Mitchell, Reed Shepherd, SGA. Maybe you've got to fit in a small forward, power forward.
Well, I just love the fact that he's got the 6 times 4 in a row. It's just plonk him there, put your head back and relax. Just leave him there, and you don't have to do anything for basically 6 weeks or whatever your plan is. So I think that's what probably gets me over the line as well, mate. So love that shout there, because I know that there was a question before about that, and I was thinking I've got exactly the same question myself. Anyone else here that you want to touch on that you really haven't so far, mate, before we look at the mid prices?
I think the only other guy I didn't touch on was Bain. He's Banchero's teammate. Came in as like the 3rd option this season. Franz has gone down, so he's been a little bit better for them over the last couple of weeks. However, it is Banchero's team. I don't expect Desmond Bain to be scoring too highly. But since Franz has gone down over the last couple of weeks, like Baines put out a 43, then he had a 13, a 20, an 11, a -6, and a 31. So look, he's cheap. He's only 12.5 million. But again, we can see that if he's got a -6 in him, there are some decent, really low floor games there that I'd be scared of. So look, for me, it's SGA, it's Murray. And then on this list here, it's the third there is either Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jalen Williams, or J-Dub as we call him. I'm not going anywhere near Banchero. But again, if you like him, if you do the research and you think he's in for a big week, those listening, by all means, lock him into your side. It's down to what you want at the end of the day.
Fantastic summary, mate. There's only one bloke on the slide here for the mid-price targets. Now, there's other options out there, but one you wanted to focus on here, what can you tell us about this man, Cam Spencer, and his prospects going forward, mate?
Yeah, so he's a twin in the league, the Spencer brothers. One plays for Golden State, one plays for Memphis, and they're actually both playing quite decent as of late, and they're getting a bit of traction on social media. I only put this guy in because Memphis are just decimated once again with injuries. Ja Morant's out. They've got a couple of key bigs out as well. So Cam Spencer just needs to do more. He actually got the starting role the other day in the first game that Ja missed, and he went bananas. He actually had, if we put down here, he had, well, it was only 21 Supercoach points, but that was because he shot the ball terribly and turned the ball over a fair bit. But he had something like 21 points and 11 assists. So he can actually do it stats-wise. Yeah. And I think all he needs is someone to be out, and Ja Morant is out. And I just think if you're really, really desperate and you just haven't got that money available, you've run out of boost and you need a kind of super downgrade to a mid-price, Cam Spencer would be good. However, if you can still afford Kevin Porter Jr., you haven't got him from Milwaukee, he's still the best mid-price option. Still has the best break-even in the game, I might add. But again, I wanted to bring someone new to the table, so that's why I've got Cam Spencer there. So, someone to watch, see how he goes this week with Ja Morant out.
Beautiful. So if you're looking for someone at that mid-price point, you don't want to go all the way up, all the way down, could definitely be a man to take a look at. All right, mate, here we go with some of the rookie targets here. Now, we've talked about the second man on the list already. So did you just want to just jump straight into him? Is it, again, a matter of just bring him in? There's other options. If you don't own him, bring him in straight away. Is it that simple, mate?
I think so. I mean, there are situations where I'd probably say maybe not. And it's if, for whatever reason, you can only afford, let's say, SGA because you get Gonzalez instead of Raynaud, for example. Well, then get Gonzalez because SGA is the main guy. We always want to get the main guys into our team. But as you heard before, Sabonis being out for 4 to 6 weeks, this guy is playing like 35 minutes a game. The role is there. They're pretty much got no one else covering him. They have the fourth guy on the list there, Cardwell. He's a two-way player, a rookie that also they're playing about 20 minutes a game. He's also not a bad option, by the way. He's at basement price. But Raynaud, he just seems like it's like that Derek Queen situation. He's getting the starting role now. They're using him. He's scoring. He's rebounding. He's very efficient. He's got the capacity, as we saw in a 3-game week, to have 75. So if you're averaging 25 Supercoach points a game on a 4-game week, getting 100 as a 6 million player, that is good work there. So they haven't got a really good schedule the next couple of weeks, but it doesn't matter because he's got another 4, 5, even 6 weeks ahead of him to do a lot of work for us. So, get him in unless it's going to cost you getting someone like SGA, for example. That's my opinion. Gonzalez below him. There's this weird thing in Boston with the small forward position. It was Minot early in the season. Then it was Walsh. He, as of late, has not done well. And I feel sorry for those that brought him in the last couple of weeks. He's made a little bit of money, but he's not maximized what he was doing in that week we had off for the NBA Cup. Now this Gonzalez guy, by all means, he's not starting, but he's played in the last 2 games in a row 27 minutes a game, and he's put up some good numbers. So I expect the Celtics to continue to play him. I believe in yesterday's game, they actually started him in the second half over Walsh. So they're really liking what Gonzalez is doing now. Again, very volatile in Boston. They love to just change up that small forward position. But he's only at 4.1 million. So he's a really good option as well. I'm trying to fit in Raynaud and Gonzalez this week, maybe with a boost. Because I think they're probably the best 2 rookies we have for a little while, unless someone pops up in the next couple of weeks. And then Cardwell, he plays for Sacramento as well. He's pretty much the backup to Raynaud. Raynaud's getting about 35 minutes. Cardwell's finding himself getting about 15 to 20 minutes. Good shot blocker. He's had 7 blocks in his last 2 games. Doesn't do much else. Like he's only scored, I think, 2 points today. I think he had 4 points yesterday. Can rebound, not bad. But again, he's just that really basement price rookie if you're desperate to save, let's say, that extra $3 million from Raynaud. And then I had Pender up there as well from Orlando. He was just a third one because he had a really good game last game. He hasn't been playing too well as of late, but last game against Utah put up a really, really good stat line. So if Orlando, for whatever reason, start to play him a little bit more off the bench, he could be someone we look to put in our sides maybe next week. But I wouldn't run out to get Pender. I'd be looking at the other 3 before I do that.
Yeah, I've actually got Pender in my side already. I brought him in, I reckon, 4 or 5 weeks ago because he was really, really cheap. And I looked at the scores and could not believe to see his name right up there at the top in one of the games this week. So unbelievable. But as you said, don't rush out to get him. I've just luckily got him sitting there as it is. Now, the only quick thing I want to touch on here, Boz, and I know this is circumstantial depending on how many boosts you've got and all the rest, is, in your opinion, is Gonzalez boost worthy this week? Is he worth using a boost on it? You just say if you've got a few in the bank.
I think he is. I think he's showing at the moment that he's going to get 25 plus minutes a game, and that's what we look for. We look for role. I mean, there's not many guys out there coming off the bench in the Supercoach format that is getting 25 minutes. You know, we spoke about some guys last week, like Danny Wolf as a great option, but he's only getting like 15 minutes. So the moment a guy plays well and teams reward that, and we see him starting to consistently play over 25 minutes a game, they're the type of guys you need to get in your team ASAP because that might stick. He might start getting the starting role now. You never know. I think Jaylen Brown's actually questionable tomorrow for illness. So if you luck out again with an injury, like if Jaylen Brown for Boston misses and then Gonzalez gets an obvious start, well, then that can then speed track, obviously, some cash generation. So I think that it is boost worthy. Like, I don't know how people are going to afford SGA and then someone else decent if they're not going to be boosting, in my opinion. Like, I think a lot of people have got a lot of plays in their team that are only on 3 games going into this week because they would have prepared for this last week just gone when no one really had the 3 games. And it'd be pretty tough to have, 4 or 5 of those still on your court this week when a lot of others who are playing for this week have a lot of 4-game players. So I know me, I'm going to boost and I'm going to get these 2 guys in and then try to work my way around that. So yeah, I would do it.
Love it, mate. Now, Causa said Caldwell only playing due to, someone that's injured. Do you know how to pronounce that name there for me, Boz?
Yeah, that's Eubanks. Yeah.
Oh, Eubanks. That's how I would have actually read it, but I thought there's no chance it'll be Eubanks. But there we go. Before we do go on, Tinkin, how are you, mate? Question, thoughts on Trey Murphy over Polo this week? What do you think about Murphy, Boz?
Yeah, well, we haven't really spoken about Murphy for a while. He was someone we spoke about when the Pelicans got into their first really nice run at the start of the season. And some people went Trey Murphy and, he was putting out between 90 and 105 on 4 games. And that's really good. That's really consistent. Trey Murphy over the last 2 weeks, 24 points, 5.5 rebounds, 3 assists, just over a steal, 64% from the field, which is very high for him. Low turnovers. He's a really consistent player, Trey Murphy. Again, he reminds me of Jamal Murray, not in the way they play, but in terms of Supercoach scoring, the floor is not as low as Banchero, but I don't think the ceiling's as high. So Banchero is that one that can put out a monster triple-double and for whatever reason in that given week maybe actually shoot a bit better than what he usually does and hit his free throws. And then we really see a big Banchero score. Whereas Trey Murphy, you pretty much know what you're going to get. You're going to get 95 to 110 on a 4-game week and he plays all 4 games. So comes down to what you are like as a player, Tinkin. Are you someone who likes to risk it or are you like someone who's a bit safer? I personally am a safer kind of player. But if you're someone who likes to go a bit risky, then I'd probably pick Paolo. But if you're liking the safety of it, Trey Murphy III is a great option.
Very well answered, mate. Extremely well answered. So there you go, Tinkin. All the good oil from Boz there for you, buddy. All right. Let's get into the captains here, mate. The Capitano's Corner. I think the top two are going to be very, very highly owned. So it's a really relevant discussion this week. Both have high ceilings. We've talked about SGA's consistency, the fact that he really need to step up, and we don't really need to talk about Nicola whatsoever. Before we maybe go the 50-50 there and talk about who would look to get in, Cade as well, do you want to talk about maybe his prospects for the week?
I really only put Cade here because I wanted to put 3 before I put the pod pick. Like, he's been so good for Detroit this season. It's a big reason why they've won so many games. And, you know, he's just that kind of notch below your SGA, in my opinion. I think he's averaging about 30 flat, which is really good. But SGA is kind of just that little bit better. And then Jokic obviously is in a world of his own. So, look, if you got Cade, you're not captaining him, in my opinion. It's definitely between Jokic and SGA. To be honest, it's probably Jokic. Let's be honest. But yeah, I just thought I'd kind of put him in there as a bit of a, you know, tip my hat to him because he's been doing so well this season.
Like it, mate. Well, SGA, we've talked about him. The joke, as you said, if you got him, I most likely put him in on a 4-game week. I'm pretty much locking in that captaincy, unless you're looking for a bit of a pod type move. You may have a matchup in your Supercoach Cup, for example, if you're really, really focusing on that you could change things up if you want to. But let's get to the couple of pods here that you've got, Boz, because I think that the top 2 super obvious. You wanted a third name just to chuck in there with Cade Cunningham, but how about the next 2 pods?
Yeah, well, my only kind of with Jalen Williams, my only kind of reasoning for this was because of the injuries for OKC. So I just think naturally he needs to do more. Yes, it's risky. He's come back from injury. He hasn't been shooting the ball as well. He's someone like a Jalen Johnson, though. He fills the stat sheet. He's probably not as good as Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson is just taking that extra step this year, but he's someone that scores, rebounds, assists really well from that small forward position, loves a steal, loves a block on usually good percentages. So he just fits that kind of nice super coach scoring category, does J-Dub. So I wouldn't be surprised if because Chet's out, because Hartenstein's out, that he may put up a really solid week. Hopefully for his sake as well. I think, you know, he hasn't come back as well as he would have hoped. So that's why I put him down. And then Jaren Jackson Jr., I put him down because he's finally doing what, you know, he's been doing in previous seasons. Like, for example, he's averaging this season 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, under 1 steal, just over 1 block on 47% shooting. Now, that is horrendous. He was the leading blocks player before Wemby was around, like 3 or 4 years back. So I don't know what's happened. However, the last 2 weeks, the 18 points is up to 23.5. The 5 rebounds up to 7.3. The 2 assists up to 3.3. The 0.9 steals up to 1.3 steals. And the 1.2 blocks up to 2.7 blocks. So I think he's finally turned it around. I think the form is actually where it needs to be and where we thought it would be. I remember way back at the very, very start of NBA Supercoach being announced, he was in my first team before I even looked at the schedule. He ended up not being in my team because they had a poor schedule to start. Well, thankfully, that kind of saved me there. But he was someone that I looked at and was like, yeah, I think he will score really well Supercoach-wise. So I think Jaren Jackson's finally kind of playing where he needs to play and where he should be playing for that Memphis team. And that's turning into some really good scores. So, like, I wouldn't be surprised if Jaren Jackson on the 4-game week this week scores, you know, 120. I think he definitely has that ceiling score. It's just about consistently doing it, which he has, but only for the last week and a half. So hopefully that form can stick, and that's why I put him there.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful. So again, it seemed like we're on repeat here with the big boy there from Denver, but I think for the next 6 weeks, you've got a very, very nice captain option there. And if you want to spice it up from time to time, like your SGAs, KJ Dub, then go for it. But I think that our advice remains pretty steady there. If you got the big fella, it's really, really hard to knock him back as the big C. Boz, we are currently just at 40 minutes. This is a bit of a record for us. I've gone through all the slides. Is there anything else that you want to discuss NBA Supercoach wise before we let this beautiful audience go for the week?
No, not really, to be honest. I think we've touched on it pretty well. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer those. But if there's not, I reckon maybe we can discuss our potential trade thoughts if you've even thought about it. I've had a little bit of a tinker. But yeah, are there any questions in the chat or?
Let's have a look. I think we've gone through all of them. Yes, and I'll get back to that. Yes, I reckon we're good with questions in the chat. If anyone does have a question, feel free to pop it in. But look, I think what the audience will love is to hear what your trade plans are. We can see you sitting second overall in the Podmasters group, the best of the best when it comes to content creators out there. What are you thinking yourself, Boz? You did touch on the fact that you are using a boost. For context, I believe you've got 3 left. Is that right, mate?
Yeah, 3 left. Wanted to have 4 left, but with Cat being ruled out last week, I did a last minute boost. Funnily enough, it got me Jalen Johnson, so I'm glad I got him back, my man.
Nice.
So that's good. And it would have, if Cat played, I would have been, who knows what I would have scored this week. It would have been near the 500s, let alone the 600s. So yeah, going to do my 3rd boost. Always plan to do a boost in this round. We touched on it a couple of weeks ago with the schedule. There's some really nice, obviously the 4-game run. So I was keen to kind of get a few of these guys in. And I'm looking to get those 2 rookies. So Reynaud and Gonzalez. I will be getting SGA in. And then it's just a matter of who I'm moving out to free up money for that 2nd spot. I really want Murray. Just think he's going to be really consistent. However, I don't know if I can afford the 16 million. I was playing around before, and it's even to the point where I'm moving Cooper Flagg out of my team. And just because he's potentially missing tomorrow, and I know I said before not to, and I don't recommend doing that. If he does miss, maybe get rid of him. But if he doesn't, I wouldn't. But I am. I'm a bit weird. I like to sacrifice early in a game of Supercoach to get ahead or try to get ahead. It bites me in the backside so many times, but I'm just going to continue playing the way I play. So the idea is to move on Flag within that boost. I think it can get me Jaren Jackson. I think I got about 14 million. I don't want Banchero. It can't get me J-Dub. So I think I'm going to probably just get Jaren Jackson as a 1-week play because that will then bank me about 3 million. And then I'll look to actually move Jaren Jackson straight off again next week on top of another player, maybe like a Cade who is not on a 4-gamer. And that'll get me Wemby and that'll get me Wemby and a rookie.
Ooh, okay.
And then I'll have Jokic, SGA, Jalen Johnson, all the guys you want, as well as Wemby on the 4-game week. So all the big dogs that you pretty much a must-haves will be in my side. So pretty much like a bit of a sacrifice boost here to plan for next week.
I like it. A sacrifice boost. I like that. And Tinkin's absolutely all over it here. And it's your boy, Boz. Denny has a really good run. Looks good too. Absolutely, mate. I think Boz has been banging on about Denny Advia since week 1, to be quite honest. So absolutely. And love work, fellas. Sleepless nights have already begun until AFL Supercoach returns. I'm with you. I was speaking to Boz, mate. Once it gets in the full swing of AFL, I'm a very, very busy man. Now, with my trades, Boz, this is what they were before pre-podcast. So it was out Scotty Barnes, out Jay Williams, because he just wasn't really doing much, just sitting there on the bench and someone needed to go, and Sengun out, in SGA, Reynaud, and Panchero. So they were my 3 trades. Now, I went to trade up, and I can do it with DPP, Panchero for Murray. I don't quite have the money. I'm about 400K down. So now, and this is when the boost comes into it, knowing that you're doing it, I think that I'm safe to go with someone like a Gonzalez into my side. But the big question, the same thing that's on your mind, is who do you actually trade out? So Knappel, Huff, Queen, I want to keep on to Flag. And that's when you do look at someone like a Flag, isn't it? Because I don't necessarily have other options that I want out. You know, Porter Jr., I just bought in. His break even's still at a crazy level. Nembard I bought in the other week. I just don't have an obvious selection to bring in. So my question is, do I boost and go Gonzalez? It'll also allow me to get Murray. Or do I just go, do you know what? I'm just going to stick with Banchero, and hopefully he has a couple of ceiling games rather than some floor games. So that's probably my big question at the moment. But the more that I think about it, I really like the idea of Murray sitting there for 6 weeks. So I've got boosts there. And look, they're used to facilitate moves that you really want to make. So I may look to do that. I'm probably leaning towards that after speaking with you, great man. So They're our trade plans, guys. Let us know what you think. I know, Boz, you've put up your team on Twitter. Always do that at the end of each round. So get around Boz on Twitter. Let him know what your trade plans are, what the side's looking like. And as always, I'm sure that he'll give you some advice if you get it in on time and he's around. Don't bother about sending it to me because I normally either tag Verns or Boz in it myself because they are the main men when it comes around here. All right, before we let you go, the ladies' man calls a Blackledge. I traded out Calc for Gonzalez as keeping Huff. Yeah, Calc's the other one. What do you think about that? Just quickly, Boz. Calc for Gonzalez. Worth it?
Well, it's funny because we haven't really spoken about Calc for about 4 weeks. He made us so much money at the start of the season, got a little bit injured.
Yeah.
Good on Causa there for keeping him because at the moment, again, Charlotte a little bit injury decimated. Lamella Ball keeps missing games. So he's only got a 34 break even. However, they're on a 3-game week. So look, he's on a 3-game week. He's just going to ride your pine. There's no point in keeping him. You may as well move him on, save the cash, facilitate other options. I think that's a really good option to move for Gonzalez.
There you go, Causa. 2 thumbs up from Boz with that trade. All right, guys, we are almost at 50 minutes. This is a record for us, Boz. I think we've been much better time-wise lately, just like the GDS podcast that we did. I think that was just over the half-hour mark. So we're getting better and better every week. And cannot thank you enough again for all of your knowledge and information that you bring to this podcast, mate. Any final words before we say goodbye to our audience for the week?
Final words would be Merry Christmas to those that celebrate. All the very best. And to those that don't, keep doing you.
Exactly right. Keep doing you. I'm not a huge Christmas person. The wife is massive on it. So I do get dragged along to some Christmas lights and all that sort of fun stuff. But nah, it is a fun season, mate. We're both on school holidays. So whether or not it's Easter, Christmas, happy holidays, whatever it is, we have a little bit of time off to enjoy ourselves, get stuck into maybe watching some more NBA matches with a couple of cold ones. So cannot wait, Boz. Have fun with the painting, mate. At least you can do it, take your time, and maybe listen to a couple of podcasts on the Swordplay YouTube channel, mate. So thanks again, Boz. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you soon in the next one. Cheers, bye.